with Roll20. I think it's just Lee's his whatever's going on with Discord with him is the issue, because he doesn't have it open and then it just dumped on him again.
All right.
IT problems.
We'll get Lee on here as soon as we can.
All right. So you begin hearing these gibbering voices as you're traveling through the jungle to where you think that this Bendal Dolum place is.
Oh, this is totally freaking Yusuf is out. I mean,
Yeah, it's kind of freaking everybody out. I mean, because sometimes Morgan he'll be like, "Stop," because you all kind of acknowledge that you hear these, these voices out in the jungle. But when you stop and you actually kind of concentrate, start listening, you don't hear them anymore.
Right.
Kind of like the glitch that's happening in my headphones right now. And then you'll kind of continue, and then after a little while, you'll start hearing them again. As you guys are trekking through the jungle, hacking away with your machetes and stuff. And after traveling for several days from the Mayan type pyramid, where you guys kind of let Lockley go off into the jungle on his own, after a few days, the mist kind of suddenly parts to reveal this valley below, and you see the gates of Bendal Dolum.
we made it.
Yeah. And you guys are all, beat up and bruised and scratched up, and you have mosquito bites on your mosquito bites, and it's been kind of a miserable trek. And finally, you've reached your destination.
So there are two large statues on the ends of the gate. And how high up is the gate?
Well, first, the whole area has a very distinctive architectural style. And between Percy and Dr. Morgan, with your kind of archaeological and anthropological background, you realize that it's very similar to this kind of strange architecture that you've encountered this far. It's very Mayan-like, um, but it's definitely not Mayan.
Hmm.
Um, it's, Dr. Morgan's like, the precise origins of these structures remain unclear to me, he says.
What 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 year you reckon this is from? Is this as old as the other place we found back yonder?
He says, I do not know, Mr. Braun. I think we should take a closer look. Williamson could still be alive.
So, okay. Okay, right. So, it's just a lake. Like, where does this bridge go off to? Can we see a city beyond the lake? Does the bridge go all the way across the lake?
Well, just to give you kind of an idea, as you guys are approaching this place,
Right.
the whole complex sits upon sort of a stinking pool of stagnant, fetid water.
Uh-huh.
And it's basically a series of ramps that connect buildings, and the mist is still actually pretty thick, so you can't really see too far in the distance as you're approaching, but you see these massive walls about 60 feet high on either side. Um, and the entrance is sort of this greasy looking stone ramp flanked by two 60-foot stone walls. And on either side of the stone ramp, kind of standing twisting up into the mist above you, are these tree-like statues on large pedestals.
Tree-like statues.
Yeah, they appear to be like carved trunks of trees, but the trees actually have like 3 or 4 separate kind of looking trunks, and they're pretty high above you. And in the mist, they're kind of hard to see, but they're kind of like ropey looking tree statues. And along the ramp ahead of you, on both on either side, to the left and right sides of the ramp, um, you see these holes spaced about 6 inches apart. And from these holes, you see these sort of stinking, diseased-looking plants emerging up out of these holes and kind of drooping over into the water. Um, so you guys are kind of standing at the gate here.
Hmm.
And
Do we need?
and the smell kind of coming up out of this water's pretty strong. It's kind of like a mix of rot and sulfur and
Oh man, I was just
like
gonna ask you.
rotting vegetation.
It's
Okay.
that sulfurous smell puts my Eusephus sense on high alert just because of what happened at the smaller Calcamol.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And the water's completely stagnant. It doesn't seem to be flowing or moving at all. It's just kind of very still. And you can see, you know, algae kind of growing over parts of the water. There's some strange kind of looking lily pads growing in it. And this kind of mist is rising from it.
I see. And is it normal mist?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not
It,
the acid stinging kind.
no, it's kind of like a um, sort of very thick, humid vapor.
Now it looks to me like these walls, as you're calling them, they like jut up. How far up do these go? Like,
About 60 feet as far up, almost as far up as you can see through the mist.
and the
They're
statues
gigantic.
and the statues loom even over that as like big twisted shadows, I guess.
Well, the statues are mounted on pedestals about 20 feet up above you, and they're kind of there's one on your right side kind of looming over you, and then there's another one on the left side kind of looming.
Oh,
And
okay.
they
So
look like ropey looking trees that have been engraved in this
okay,
greasy looking stone.
right. So
Imagine like, King Kong. They're like that
right.
size, they're just a gigantic
So
wall, but
looking
they're
out
made of
this
solid
way,
rock.
this appears to be like the wall just kind of goes into the water.
Yes.
Interesting. Just looking at the stonework, does it look like it's built on any foundation, or does it just like go, like plunge into the ocean? Not the ocean, but the lake.
It's hard to tell from your vantage point. I mean, you can literally see what you see.
Right.
But it does look like the stone ramp that goes out into the water must be supported by something. I mean, it's not like floating or bobbing in the water or anything. So you can imagine that it's possibly attached to some kind of supporting structure below.
Right. So
We can't see our visibility is like at 100 feet through the mist.
That's about right. Maybe a little less than that. Yeah, the ruler's about right. And Kyle, you can use the ruler up on the little menu up here in your top left.
Yep.
There's a little ruler icon. You can click on that and you can kind of you can like point in directions or get an idea on how far you're.
Okay.
The range is roughly to scale on here, roughly,
okay.
I believe.
Can you guys see my ruler?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm having fun with it. Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's about right. That's about right according to the legend here. That's about 50 feet. About an inch is about 50 feet.
Okay.
So actually your visibility goes out,
Well,
probably about 80 feet.
But
gentlemen,
all of this is like
shall
cloaked
we?
in shadow. Like everything beyond the bright light.
Right. For the last day or so, as you guys have been traveling, it's been like perpetual twilight, just because of the mist mostly.
Okay. Which
mean,
rises above us as well.
Yes, it's all around you.
Hmm.
It's very humid. You guys are dripping with sweat. Your clothes are soaking wet.
Okay.
The mule's, really cantankerous. Miguel's having trouble kind of controlling the mule. And Devlin tells you guys that Miguel thinks that these sounds coming from the jungle that you guys are hearing periodically are kind of freaking the animal out.
Hmm.
And Percy Morgan discusses with you briefly, like he thinks that he says, I think we may have discovered some whole new, previously unsuspected pre-Columbian culture here, Colonel.
Yes, I agree. But why would they build into this fetid pool? I mean, do you think there was once a river that ran through it? I don't hear any running water, do I?
He says, I have seen no other, uh, pre-Columbian or ancient civilization in this area of the world that have built anything like this, at least not in my travels or in my studies.
I don't like this place, Professor. I think there's something evil about it. I mean, just listening to the whispering. That can't just be the wind.
He says, that does concern me. Um, he says, however, I am determined to find out what happened to Williamson. I mean, this is the reason we came.
As we're walking,
He says, I have a feeling that he is still alive, and he may be here.
you have a feeling that he might? Okay. So as we were walking up to this, Sean, we didn't see anything disturbed in the vegetation or the path at all. Did we see any footprints or?
You can give me a what is it?
Spot hidden.
I'll have you roll some dice here. Um,
Maybe. I don't know.
give me a track check.
Oh, there is a track skill, is there?
No, I'm not saying you'll find anything.
Oh, hey.
I'll give you an opportunity to try to make. Look at there.
Oh my God! He
Kyle
got
Lewis
it.
is like, that's like, no, he didn't.
That's it, dude. He got a 10. It starts at 10.
Oh,
I rolled right on it.
I thought he rolled 100 again. I was gonna say, like, that's the
Ah,
fifth 100 you've rolled in this game.
That's
Oh, come on. I rolled
incredible.
100 and 298s.
Sweet.
Congratulations on that amazing track roll.
So Eusephus, go ahead and check that.
I did.
You're kind of snooping around the area outside the gate, and indeed, you find some boot prints that look fairly fresh. It looks like a single person came through this area within at least the last day or two, maybe.
Well, maybe it's our dear friend, the raving lunatic.
Although it's hard to tell what direction he was going or where his prints lead. They kind of fade out, in the mud. But somebody was definitely walking around here recently.
Okay. Well, I'll share that with everybody. I'll try to look at the track and see if it, does it match Gordon Lockley's, like boot print?
Yeah. I mean, it looks like, the types of boots that you guys are wearing.
We should have fucking killed that guy.
Looks like whoever made it was pretty large,
Says under his breath.
Not a small man.
not a small man. Hey guys, hold on just for a second. I need to answer a question here.
Sure.
So these two posts, like, I'm assuming they're posts, or are those the statues you're talking about?
Yeah. Okay. So looking at the map, these are the statues. They're kind of attached to the wall, right?
Right.
Don't mark up my map.
Well, I'm just marking so that you...
So yeah, the statues are kind of inset into the wall on pedestals of their own on either side of the gate.
All right, I'm back, guys. Sorry.
And those are posts that the stone ramp leading out into the lake are attached to.
Right.
They're just kind of like, 3 foot on a side stone pillars that kind of come up out of the ground that the ramp is attached to.
Okay.
It appears to be carved out of the same stone, actually.
All right. I look at the professor, and I I look back to my little journal, the little journal that the Dr. Farnsworth, Professor Farnsworth gave me. Um, Now, Professor, I know this may sound odd, but I learned of an old method of warding, very similar to the to that star symbol that we saw, the Elder Sign, not too long ago. But I learned how to make it work a while back. I think that, I mean, given these ominous whispers in the distance, before we go on, I would like to spend a second here to mark this place and maybe protect this bridge from whatever. It's superstitious, you know me.
He just
I
kind of
second the motion.
he kind of looks at you and he does that thing he does. He kind of rolls his brow and frowns a little bit.
Don't worry about me. It's all superstitious. And I take out
He says, "Do what you must, Colonel." And then he starts kind of barking some orders to Devlin and Miguel. He wants the mule partially unpacked, and he wants to set a camp up outside the gate here before you guys go in to look around.
Okay, that's a great idea, actually.
I'm going to mark the post with the Elder Sign.
Okay, you're gonna mark one of the posts that the
Yes.
ramp is attached to.
Yes. And I'm going to be warding the bridge
Okay.
so that nothing might follow us or.
And you're using the oil
I am.
that Farnsworth did. Okay.
You said I have 3 uses of that, so I use
All
one
right.
of them here.
So Percy pulls out his notes, that he took from the Farnsworth tablets, and he begins doing his sort of song and his chant. And Dr. Franklin, Stuart Devlin, and Miguel and the others are just kind of looking on. Miguel, again, his jaw's kind of dropped open, like, and he's kind of holding the mule, and he's kind of backing away a little bit as this is going on. So you kind of scrape the symbol into the stone.
Mm-hmm.
And the symbol, once you finish the incantation, begins to glow with this faint greenish, bluish light. Very faint.
Okay.
Looks like you did another one.
How many magic points does that take?
Once you're done, you kind of feel a bit drained. You have this sort of throbbing headache, and your eyes hurt. 9 magic points.
Oh,
But in the mist, you can see it just kind of faintly glowing. It's kind of softly pulsing with this green-blue light.
I nod at my handiwork. I look to the professor and I say, and that's all there is to it. I'm ready to camp and move on whenever you are.
well, I bring him some water. Here you go, Colonel.
Thank you, Eusephus.
As you guys are preparing, you begin hearing the whispers again. A little more pronounced this time. And they're coming from all around you now, not in any certain direction. They're coming from the jungle, from behind, and they're also coming from the ruins in the mists ahead.
Guess that their symbol didn't ward off them damn voices.
Oh, they might if we cross the bridge. Who knows? And I look outwards into the mist. Do I see any figures or anything?
No. I mean, it's really hard to see out into the mist. You don't see very far. It's just the jungle. You do notice that all wildlife sounds have kind of stopped. You don't hear any insects or birds or anything like that. It's all very quiet, and the whispers kind of go away after a couple minutes. You look at Dr. Franklin, and his face is kind of all white. He looks pretty scared. You can actually see his hand kind of shaking a little bit. Morgan, however, kind of pulls on his belt, you know. He got his machete and his firearm. He says, "Gentlemen, shall we?"
Absolutely.
On we go. And I laugh
I check to make
nervously.
sure everything's loaded and greased up, and
Dr. Franklin walks up to Morgan and he says, "Jeremy, do you mind if I stay at camp? I'm not feeling very well." And Morgan's like, "Franklin, surely. Don't be scared. We may need you. Come." And Franklin's kind of like looks at you guys and he kind of nods and he's like, yeah, he kind of wipes the sweat off his face. "I'm sorry." So you guys walk out onto the ramp. The stone is very slick, and there's almost like this vaporous steam coming off of it in the lake around you. You get out to about here, and you can see that this ramp splits into three directions. There's a short staircase um, going forward to the west. There's a ramp that leads to a stone building to the right, and to your left, to the south, there's another ramp that leads to a smaller stone building. And there appears to be sort of a black sort of archway where the ramp kind of ends, and it goes into the building itself. There's not a seal or a door or anything on it. It's just sort of this arched entryway in both
Right.
of these buildings.
in front of us, it's a stair.
Yeah, a short stairway that goes up onto what appears to be a platform of some kind that's a little bit higher up than what you guys are. It's about 8 feet up from the ramp that you guys are standing on.
Okay. Well, which direction?
And you can also kind of see in the mist beyond, you can see what you see on the screen. There apparently are other buildings where these ramps kind of are above the water, kind of connecting to some other buildings out to your north and to your south, beyond the buildings that you're close to. It appears like a pretty massive structure.
Are there obvious doors?
There are no doors, but there are entryways, like archways that enter the buildings.
Okay.
But through the mist, to kind of see, they're just kind of like black, dark portals. They appear to be dark inside these buildings, like blackness, pitch darkness.
Somebody forgot to pay the power bill.
You're
Obviously.
right.
All right. Well,
Oh yeah.
well, so Morgan leads you guys up to here. So you guys at this junction. He says, "Braun." He says, "Check the top of the stairs. We're going to move up towards this building to the north." He says, "Don't go far. Just tell me what you see."
you got it. So I proceed up the stairs with caution.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to put another light source back. This may look kind of funky, but just to kind of show where you've been. So, Braun, you walk up to the top of the stairs here, and it appears to be just a very large, flat platform cut from solid rock.
Wow.
Just very smooth. I mean, you kind of bend down a little bit and look at the stone, and it's almost like smooth as marble, like very smoothly cut marble, black with very faint green veins in it. And the platform kind of continues out for quite a ways, and you can see to your north and to your south some other stairways that kind of lead down to other buildings to the north and the south. And the platform seems to continue further west.
All right. Well, I'll call out to the team. Just tell them what I see.
Okay.
Okay.
That's what's up here, boys.
As you're looking, Eusephus, to the west, out in this direction here, you see the mist kind of part a little bit in the distance, and you see some very large shape, something dark and large, probably a structure, just beyond your sort of vision through the mist. You can see it kind of looming in front of you and sort of above you. There appears to be a large structure to the west.
Was it squarish or?
It's hard to say, but it looks pretty high and pretty big, whatever it is.
All right, Dr. Moore, I'll just explain what I'm seeing. Dr. Moore,
Yeah.
Colonel, there is a large structure just out of my view here.
Just moving up a little bit, you can kind of see some large wall or structure or building.
Oh my.
Y'all might want to come up here and have a look at this first.
I go up to meet Eusephus and gawk at the gigantic building.
All right. So you all move up.
I mean, how high up? Like, just rough judgment. How high up are we talking?
I'll tell you.
Beyond my line of sight, yes, but like, what is that? Wow, this map looks almost three-dimensional now.
Hang on a second.
I'm really interested to see how Dr. Morgan reacts to this whole thing.
This platform that you're on, Percy, to you, being sort of somewhat familiar to ancient architecture and ancient culture, some anthropology and stuff like that, it appears like this platform was probably some kind of gathering place. It's very large. It doesn't look that old though, just like similar to the other structures that you found on the expedition so far. You would think that being, several hundred or even 1,000 years old, as a lot of these ruins are, that there would be some wear, some weathering,
Especially given that it's on water.
some erosion. But it appears like almost like new, almost as if it was constructed yesterday.
Really?
Wow.
Looking out at the water itself, does it look like there's actually any algae?
Yes.
Okay,
There is
so the water looks like it hasn't been disturbed in some time.
No, it doesn't. And in some places, you kind of see these sort of strange, kind of these strange vegetation, these strange plants kind of growing up out of the water in places.
Fern-like or vines or
You can't even really determine what kind of plant it is. It doesn't look like any kind of water plant you've ever seen.
is it leafy or what is it?
It's like they're like vines that kind of come up out of the water and they kind of creep along the top of the water in places.
But not up onto the
have-
stone.
They have sort of these brown twisted protrusions that come from them. And you notice on some of them you see like these like black insects. They look like beetles or something kind of crawling along them in some areas as you're looking down into the water.
Weird. But they don't crawl up onto the stone itself?
No, not in this area they don't. Only on the entrance ramp did they actually kind of grow up through the ramp, but they're the same kind of plants you saw at the entrance.
Right. And there were holes there, almost as if they were planted there to begin with. So
As you approach this wall, I mean, it looks like this wall it just goes up out of sight into the mist. You see a blank stone circle engraved into the stone, kind of denoted by this little door-looking object there. The stone circle is about 24 feet in diameter, And towards the floor, as you guys walk up to it, coming out of the mist, you see a face engraved into the side of this thing.
Oh,
And it looks like this.
oh God.
Oh.
It seems somewhat human. Has very strange looking eyes. It seems to be cut out of the rock that it, it doesn't seem to be attached to the wall. It seems to actually be cut out of the wall itself. And as you guys approach it, Morgan kind of gasps. He's like, and he says, "Good God, Devlin, camera."
That's I was just gonna say. I was like, you read my mind. This one's definitely photo worthy.
No, like gold or gemstones or anything?
No,
Now you're thinking like Yusufus.
it looks exactly as it appears in the photo there. I'm going to put this in your handout so you can look at it again too.
That's
Okay.
bizarro.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's that thing. Does this
My God.
large walled structure have any sort of
It's almost
obvious opening?
No, it's almost perfectly smooth, although you can see sort of blocks or a block-like pattern cut out around the face itself. And the recesses on the sides of the head and kind of below the jaw, if you look at the picture again, they seem to sink pretty far back into the stone. And Morgan walks up there, and he pulls out his machete, and he's kind of looking, around back in here. And he says, "This appears like it could be some kind of opening."
Like this is a door.
I'm gonna, like, listen, if you know what I mean. Like, I'm gonna try and, like, listen if I can hear any sort of, like, airflow, or if I can smell anything different, or, like, notice if there is an inside of this, or if this is one solid structure. Like, if the back part of that leads into a larger chasm.
So Percy, you're putting your ear kind of up to the face and
Yeah.
listening.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna bite yet.
You don't think?
Just remember, throw me your journal.
Says
Yeah.
Percy. I don't think it's gonna bite or anything. So you listen to the stone, and everything's quiet around you. You hear Miguel kind of muttering in Spanish to Devlin, and Devlin's kind of calming him down a little bit. And Percy, you begin hearing these whispers in the stone.
By Miguel's
Well, this just became the most trustworthy structure we've ever run into.
And if you stop, I'm gonna turn it up a little bit, and I want you guys to hear this. If you stop and listen, you can actually hear some words in English coming through
Okay.
these other various kind of, almost incomprehensible whisperings. You can hear it. I'm just gonna play it for you for a second. So you hear this voice whisper, and it's kind of, you're not sure you actually hear it for a moment, and you hear this voice that says something like something, or something about I'm not strong enough yet, or something like that. And then you hear this voice. It sounds like it's talking right into your ear, this whispering male voice, and it says, "I have more faith in you than that." And at that moment, you kind of pull your head away, and you're like, and Morgan's like, "What is it? What is it, Colonel?"
What did it say again? I have more things.
It says, "I have more faith in you than that." which was kind of a little bit shocking to Percy because it sounded a little louder. It sounded pretty loud in your ear when you heard it.
It
And
sounded
it
to
kind of
me like it said
startled
there's
you.
something below you, and then it said, I don't know what else it said from the actual clip there. I think it said there's something below you, but then it said that he has more faith in me yet. Big devil eye here.
It said to you, "I have more faith in you than that."
Wow. All
You think
right.
that's what it said? I can
Well,
play it for you again briefly if you want. If you want to put your head back up there again, put your ear back up to it.
I don't know if I'm gonna try my luck on that. It might learn that I'm there. It
Give me a
might
sanity.
react.
Give me a sanity check for Percy.
Yeah. No, that's not okay. Statues can't talk. Heyo. Maybe they can.
You're okay.
Professor,
I'm
the
just
statue spoke to me.
right after you just finished making the weird glowing symbol.
He says, "What do you mean, Colonel? The statue spoke to you. What did it speak?"
Well, Professor, I believe it said, and I'm not kidding, and this is in English, there is something below you, and it has more faith in me than that. Now, that may sound odd, and it is odd, so I suggest that you put your ear by the statue. I'm serious.
He kind of looks at you. He looks at Franklin, and Franklin's face is, he's kind of like,
He's permanently shocked now.
yeah, he's like, if he had he's kind of in like, I want to go home mode.
He's ready for mommy to come get him.
Yes, and it's readily apparent just by looking at him. So he kind of looks at you guys, and he does, and he puts his ear up. Says, "I hear it." It's like slurping, sucking sounds with intermittent whispers. I can't make anything out. And he looks at you, Colonel. Says, "That's very strange."
Yes, it could just be the whispers out in the mist that's getting to me that makes me hear things. Perhaps there is a scientific explanation for this. Perhaps there's something along the lines of a bubbling water. There's perhaps some moving water in there, and it's dripping in the echoes and the wind. Maybe there's some sort of internal source of wind. We've seen caverns do similar things, I'm sure. Maybe it all just sounds like words and whispering, and the slurping that you describe might just be water. That's what I think. The statues can't talk.
It was very distinct.
Maybe there's somebody in there.
Aye.
We know there's somebody here. There's somebody around here. Those boot prints.
Oh, yes.
Maybe somebody's trapped inside. I'll go over and take a look at the face and see if I can figure out if there's some way to open this thing up.
All right.
Speak, friend, and enter.
It's made out of solid rock. There's no apparent opening. I mean, you check all the little nooks and crannies. The areas to the sides of its head and under its chin kind of are recessed back into the stone, carved into the stone. But there are no apparent latches, levers, anything like that. And you try to budge it, you try to move it, and it won't move.
None of the teeth, are like levers, or
No.
you can't poke the eye and it opens.
Nope.
Can't find
Nope.
a lever up its nose.
Nope. And just
Creepy
as
face.
indicated by the map here, you guys are on a platform what is it, about 30, 35 feet wide. And to either side, it drops off into this stagnant water. And it's just a solid wall of rock before you. You can see to the north and the south other buildings with connecting platforms
Yes, I suggest that we go this
Made-
way.
made of the same kinds of stone.
Or better yet, go this way and then into this building.
I agree.
Okay.
Yep, I think we do exactly what you're saying.
All right, so you guys are traveling up this way?
Nope.
Oh no, this way.
We're going
Back this
back
way?
and then up.
Okay. Let me put another marker over here, just kind of. This is probably just the best way to show where you guys have been. Without really revealing anything.
We'll mark this one as our red so that we know which one is us.
Yeah. Okay. So you move up to this sort of archway, and it's black inside, very dark. Devlin actually pulls out, an old-fashioned torch, and he lights up the torch.
I ready my elephant gun, which is slung across my back.
Okay.
I think this might be the one time I want to be behind Percy.
Percy pulls an elephant gun.
My eyes get wide. I'm like, woo.
And so it begins.
Well, bears,
So
Oh,
Morgan,
I think it's a good measure.
Morgan bids Devlin enter first with his torch. And you enter what appears to be a one-room structure. And engraven into the stone walls, you see all kinds of frescoes of unspeakably brutal torments and mutilations carried out on hapless humans by the same tree-like things you saw carved into the gates. Although you get a better look at them now, they appear to be tree-like, as I said. The lower parts of their body appear to be like bowls or like trunks of trees, but they end in like hooves, like cloven hooves. And about and up towards the middle part of their body sprout all of these sort of what can best be described as some sort of like snaky tentacles or appendages that just kind of just flay out from their body. And these tree beings are kind of covered in these lipless mouths. And you can see they have fangs. And you can see even engraven into the rock and around these mouths, you can see what appears to be some sort of like ooze or goo just kind of pouring out of their mouths. And so you're seeing these engravings, and they appear to be, torturing and mutilating humans. These things are about 5 times bigger than a human. And you see some of them are like stamped under hoof, and you see some of them, are just torn apart like this. And it's something to behold. Everybody give me a sanity check.
Devlin, camera.
I think I know where we've seen this
Devil
before.
camera.
Oh, finally.
Oh.
Wow. Isn't that weird? Like, I get numbers in twos.
No, don't think about it. Just let it happen.
No, I'm just saying, it is weird. It's happened to me 3 game nights in a row.
You're
strange.
You're redeeming yourself at this point.
I failed.
Okay. You don't lose. You guys don't lose any if you succeeded. As you guys are inspecting this, Devlin kind of moves. Devlin moves into the room with his torch.
I failed my check.
Oh, you failed it. You lose 1 then. One sanity point. Devlin moves into the room, And he says, Doctor, it looks like a well. And when he says that, you hear Miguel behind you kind of shriek. He's like, ah! And he turns and he runs off into the mist.
Miguel!
And Devlin kind of comes out, to the entrance, and he's same thing. He's like, Miguel! And he's gone, like in the mist. You don't see him.
We need to go get him.
And Morgan's like, oh. Devlin, we'll wait here. Go see if you can find him. And he's like, okay, boss. And Devlin goes out into the mist with his torch.
Professor,
Morgan.
we should go get him. We should go with him. We don't know what's out there.
Morgan seems to kind of ignore what you say. He moves into the building, and he's shining his flashlight around. And you guys see, and this place is very dark, and there's mist in here too. And you guys are just kind of seeing the frescoes near the entrance of you. You haven't really seen all of them, around. But in the middle of the room, you see what appears to be a hole, or a circular hole, almost like a well. And from the well rises another tree-like statue, almost like the same size as the ones you guys saw out at the gate. It's a gigantic statue rising from this well, and the pseudopods, or the snaky arms of this thing, kind of branch out, and they actually form part of the ceiling as well. He kind of shines his light up this thing, and up in the ceiling you can see the ceiling's just kind of covered with these snaky tentacles engraven into the ceiling, almost like the branches of a tree. And again, you see it, you get a better view of these lipless mouths just kind of silently drooling stone slobber, out of these fanged mouths of this thing.
Devlin, take a picture of the...
Devlin's not here.
I know.
We need. I pull Professor Morgan back, and I turn him to face me. Morgan, we have to stay together. Either we get Devlin back, or we go with him to get Miguel. We don't know what's out there. We don't know what's in here. We can't just we can't just send people out into the mist.
He kind of sighs, and he's like shining his light around, and you see him shine his light on something sitting on the floor over there. He doesn't say anything to you.
I go look at
It
what he
appears to
shined the
be-
light on.
They appear to be scattered, like, pieces of paper, some dark objects kind of lying around on the floor over there.
I'll go take a look.
And he says, over here. And Morgan walks over there. It appears to be sort of like a thick parchment type drawing paper, kind of scattered on the floor. And you see several pieces of what appear to be like artist's charcoal scattered on the floor as well. And on some of the pages, you can see that some charcoal rubbings have been taken of apparently some of these frescoes on the wall. Morgan picks up one of the rubbings. And he turns to you, Eusebius. He says, Williamson was here, he says.
And while they're examining the rubbings, I'm gonna run out back onto the platform, and I'm gonna try to get to the base of the bridge and yell for Devlin.
Okay. He yells back at you through the mist from the direction of the gate. He says, it's okay, Colonel. He's okay. He's just a little scared. I'm going to stay with him.
We need to stay together, Devlin.
He says, I'm afraid he's too frightened right now. I'm going to have to calm him down.
Stay safe.
He says, go on, we'll be along shortly.
I go back into the hut and say a small prayer for Devlin and Miguel.
Okay.
Yeah, and for us too. If we lose the boat captain,
Yeah, and Eusephus and Morgan and Franklin, who are in the little fresco building here, you guys hear, the shouts of Percy and the,
Devil.
and Devlin out there, so
I'm gonna feel comfortable. It's like normal human voices trafficking, just regular communication. It's kind of
Yes.
comforting.
Absolutely.
So, well, Dr. Morgan, you want me to gather these up?
Just yes, yes. And he's shining his light he's kind of walking around this kind of circular area in the center of this room, and he's shining his light on all of these frescoes, and some of them are just just horrible, dude.
Morgan, I know where we've seen these before.
Says yes, they do look familiar, don't they, Colonel?
The medallion.
Yes.
He turns to you and he looks at you, Percy. The medallion?
Yes, the medallion.
Oh, the medallion. And he reaches down inside of his coat and he pulls out the golden medallion. He says it does seem similar.
Can you pull up a picture of the medallion?
Sure.
I can't see. I don't think we have one in the pits of.
I wonder if that medallion will help us open that face in the rock wall over there.
That might be a key. Yeah, there it is.
That's it. It's a circular medallion that appears to be some being with hooved feet, kind of short, thick legs, and ropey, tentacle-looking appendages coming off of a central body. Indeed, it does look similar, doesn't it? It's more of kind of a stylized version of what you're seeing on these walls.
Right.
The engravings in these frescoes, of these creatures or whatever they are much, a little more explicit. They appear to be tree-like horrors with these dripping mouths and horrible, horrible things.
Right.
And they're like just tearing humans, these little naked humans limb from limb.
Professor, I don't know of any Aztec
Some of them are
gods
hanging
that
out
look
of their
like
mouths.
this.
He says, I'm convinced that this is certainly not of Mayan origin. This is something evil, he says.
So this is have we stumbled into something brand new here, gentlemen?
Well,
Yeah, he says this is like something I've never seen. He says I fear for Williamson. He was here.
perhaps we'll find more evidence in the next buildings.
Well, I pack up the charcoal rubbings and the rest of the parchment. Just make sure it's secure.
Okay. They appear to have been here for at least, several weeks. Some of them are kind of moldy, wet. They're not in great condition.
Okay, well, I do what I can to get them in decent enough shape to travel, assuming we can get them out of here.
Okay. Morgan suggests that we move on here to the north. He says we'll take photographs of this and later.
Is this all on the same day that we reached this place?
Yes. It's like late afternoon at this point. You have several hours of sunlight left, if you can call it sunlight. Light, let's say.
Okay.
You guys move into the next building here. And this building also contains sort of a fantastic array of relief carvings. However, in this building, they're all painted in bright colors. And they seem to be some sort of historical portrayal of some sort. You can see some of the engravings portray this complex that you guys are in right now of Bendal Dolum. You can see kind of like stylized images of the layout in a way. Back towards where you guys found the stone face, beyond that is depicted what appears to be another pyramid of some kind, for one thing. And as you guys move into the main chamber of this structure, you see more carvings of depicting humans and other kind of less distinct creatures, not quite human. Uh, they seem to be gathered in worship and ceremony. And on these relief carvings all around you, the whole complex is just kind of alive with activity. There's like people worshiping, there's like people, working and building, and it seems to be going sort of a continuous. I mean, Morgan actually points out, he says he's seen things similar in Mayan carvings where it's actually sort of a timeline. And he begins kind of, looking at it with his light and kind of following it. And the wall kind of veers around up there to the north, and in the next chamber depicts what appears to be Bendal Dolum's creation. You see these gigantic, horrifying, fantastic tentacled beasts rearing great blocks of stone, while human and half-human artisans carve them into their present forms.
Mm.
And above the entire site, you see engraved into the stone a pair of gigantic floating red eyes watching the construction.
It's the Great Gatsby.
It's just a pair of these big red eyes. And again, you would expect if this place were, old and or whatever, that a lot of the paint may be faded and everything, but everything is very bright and vivid in here.
And it's painted on there, or
Well, no, they're engraved into the wall, but it's all very brightly painted with
okay.
all different colored pigments. Some pretty amazing work, actually. Morgan's like, this is amazing.
We should we're gonna have a big photo day.
So you guys continue back around. There's a smaller chamber in this building. This chamber is of dual interest. The carvings in this chamber evidently show what was, and this is readily apparent, and I mean, just within 30 seconds, you guys realize what these engravings and art depicts. It seems to show what at least was the artist's depiction of Bendal Dolum's future. You see the structure now appears to be old and disused. However, in front of the pyramid complex structure that you noticed in the other engraving is a circular opening with a writhing tentacled horror crawling through it. And hanging in the air above the city, above Bendal Dolum, is an oversized skull-like moon. Also, a little startling to everyone is Morgan's flashlight is kind of passing along. The flashlight shines upon a lone skeleton sitting
Ooh.
sitting propped up against the wall, and the skeleton's just kind of in rags, bits and pieces of clothing.
I'll walk over to that and investigate.
All right, Morgan walks over with you. Next to the skeleton, you see there's a lantern and several pieces of mildewy looking notepaper lying nearby on the floor. and you can see some kind of scrawled writing on these pieces of paper. So the first thing you do, Eustace, he's got the remnants of sort of a shirt, you know. There's pockets, so you kind of check the pockets in the shirt, and you find like a leather billfold inside one of the pockets, and inside is a passport with some other identification, and it would apparently identify the skeleton as that of Anthony Baldwin. Anthony Baldwin was Williamson's assistant.
Wow. Okay. Well, you know, with a grim face, I'll hand
Yeah.
the passport over to Morgan and
Yeah, Morgan
kind of
kind of
shake my head.
Yeah, Morgan kind of kneels down next to you. He's like, "My God!" And he looks over the passport, the papers, and he again starts kind of shining his flashlight around. It's kind of a smaller chamber. He just kind of seems to be checking for anything else. And he shines his flashlight back onto the skeleton. And he's kind of looking around the area where the skeleton is.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "Braun," he says, "prop it up, will you?"
All right. I'll carefully prop it up.
Yeah. Yes, carefully, very carefully. Pull it away from the wall.
Yes. I'll do that.
All right. He pulls out a pencil on his thing, and he begins kind of poking at the skeleton a little bit, kind of moving away some pieces of the clothing. And he reveals what apparently is it looks like the ribs of the skeleton are cracked. And it looks like some kind of impact hit the skeleton in its left side. And he kind of moves his flashlight a little closer, and he's shining down on the floor. And you can see several several bullets lying on the floor underneath the body.
Spent cartridges?
Yes. I mean, they barely made a dent in the stone, but they are spent cartridges. They're actual bullets, kind of smashed and mushroomed into the stone itself. 6 of them, actually.
Is his firearm around?
Nope. Dr. Franklin standing behind you. He says, "It looks as if he was murdered, Doctor." He says, "Note." "Note the cracked ribs and the contusions up here." He says he was shot in the abdomen. Appears. It's like, my God, who could have done this?
Maybe Mr. Lockley.
And where's Williamson?
Do you think it was Lockley?
I guess we just will never know, but seems odd.
It would explain much.
Says, well, let's move on. We still have some daylight left. We'll give Mr. Baldwin a proper burial this evening, he says.
All right.
Both of you guys give me a spot hidden. For Eustace and Percy. Look at that. He's on a roll, literally.
Yeah, and it wasn't a 10 this time.
Yeah. Percy.
I got a 51, which is a fail.
Okay.
I think I rolled for it,
Now give me an idea roll for Eustace.
No idea. But I will point out I guess if I saw anything, I'd point it out to, the other people in the party,
Right.
so maybe they can see what I'm seeing.
So you're like I said, Morgan's kind of knelt down next to you. You see, it's like very close to you. And being so close to him, and sort of his flashlight, lights kind of dispersed very brightly around you. You look at him, as you're talking to him, and you notice that, and this may mean nothing, but you just kind of notice like something you hadn't noticed before. Um, I mean, you've never actually, been this close to him. Um, his skin, like on his face and his arms, he's got his shirt sleeves kind of pulled up like this. The skin on his hands and his face and his arms is like it's like a baby. It's like there's like no marks or bruises or bug bites or anything on him,
Hmm.
And then you kind of like, you look over at Percy and his face is all melted and he's got like freaking welts from insect bites all over him, and he's all bandaged up and he's got scrapes and bruises. And you look at the doctor and he's the same way. He's got a big scratch on his face and it's all bruised up. And then you look back at Morgan and it's like, I mean, you kind of noticed that earlier. I don't know if you remember me mentioning that. And you kind of attributed it at that time, because you guys are always you guys are doing all the dirty work, hacking through the jungle and stuff like that. And he hasn't really done any labor, nothing. Being this close to him, you just find it kind of odd. Like he doesn't even seem to have a mosquito bite or anything on him. It's just something that kind of you notice, and you're like, what? That's odd. But he stands up, he says, well, let's move on while we have some daylight. We'll give Anthony a proper burial.
Does he have hair?
Later this evening. Of course he does.
Like body hair?
Yeah.
Okay.
He looks completely normal, other than what I just described to you.
Okay. You said like a baby, so.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's got some body hair or whatever, but I guess the baby thing was not appropriate. But...
Dr. Morgan, the first metrosexual.
Right. Right, like here's a picture of him. He's a normal looking, clean cut kind of guy.
Mhm. Does his hair still have the nice slick?
Sure. Well, he's wearing like a boonie hat, but
Sure.
yeah.
Hmm.
So.
This is.
Just something you notice.
I'll keep that in mind.
All right. So he walks off with Franklin up here off to the north. You guys kind of come behind. You walk out into this platform. And the stench out here is pretty bad, coming up from the water. And the mist seems to be becoming thicker as the light begins to dim. It's becoming evening now. And Percy, you could have sworn you saw something move over there in the water.
An alligator.
Nobody else really notices it, but you're not sure actually. You don't see any ripples in the water. You think you like heard something or saw just some movement out of the corner of your eye. You just kind of think to yourself like, well, maybe it's just stress or something like that. But then you start getting this feeling as you're trailing behind the others. Morgan is moving up this platform to this next building up here. You get this very intense feeling as if you're being watched from the direction that you heard this noise. Kind of out in the water, kind of up in this direction somewhere. Possibly near. You can barely see the shoreline through the mist. You think it may have come from the shoreline somewhere over here.
Is there still some weird whispering out in the mist?
You don't hear any whispering. You just get this very kind of intense feeling like there's something over there just looking at you. You know that feeling. The hair in the back of your neck kind of stands up. But actually quickly passes. You don't get that feeling anymore. As Morgan reaches the portal going into this next building up here.
So how's the party arranged right now? So it's Morgan and
Morgan, Franklin, Mm-hmm. Morgan with the flashlight. Franklin behind him. He's got like kind of a, like a backpack with his medical stuff. He's got a machete in his hand.
Morgan, before we go into this hut, I think that maybe we should go see how Devlin and Miguel are doing.
Says, but we don't have much light left, Colonel.
Then I will be back.
Very well.
Eusephus?
Oh, would you like me to accompany you?
Well, again, it's better to be not alone, and I feel as if we're being watched.
Okay, that sounds good.
I just want to confirm that they're still by the camp. I want to make sure that Miguel didn't go running off again, you see.
Okay.
All right. Well,
I mean,
let's
it's only
let's
like-
go. Let's go up the platform. Yeah. With that, and so when we get to about the middle of the platform,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna confide in Percy, Colonel.
Yes.
Don't
I'm,
you?
like,
I
looking
want you to
over my
take a.
shoulder
I
with
want.
that.
I want you to take a look at Dr. Morgan compared to the rest of the party, compared to all of us. He's got no scratches, no bug bites. It's like he just got off the boat for the first time. It's queer.
Yes.
Just
Well-
just take a look at him when you get a chance. I mean,
I
don't-
will,
don't think-
Eusephus, but I think we have
He
more things
may-
to worry about than whether the professor has a bug bite.
Well, that ain't human. Ain't no man could come out here and not have a single scratch, not a bug bite, nothing.
Yeah, you guys have been out here for a little over 2 weeks, I think, right?
I look back at Eusephus. You can't be suggesting that he dragged us out here because he's one of... And I, like, gesture to the whole area.
I'm not saying he's a part of this, but there's something definitely different about him. Or he needs to share his bug bite secrets with us, one of the two. But something's different about him, and there ain't no two ways about that.
Well, perhaps we could confront him.
I think that's a great idea.
But first,
Just-
Miguel and Devlin. I am genuinely worried for them.
All right, so let's. I agree. Let's go make sure they're all right.
So we're gonna like. Okay.
Yeah, so actually, as you guys finish talking and begin kind of moving over this way, you see Devlin come walking up this way.
Okay.
He doesn't see you guys, and he kind of turns up this ramp here. walking
Devlin!
towards this. All right, he kind of looks over.
We're on the platform.
All right, he waves, he comes up to you guys, and he says, "I'm sorry, Colonel. Miguel's just he's a mess. I just told him he could just stay with Ruth at camp. He refuses to come. And honestly, I don't blame him," he says.
Well, I suppose we can only hope that that little warding trick that I placed works, eh?
Yeah.
We were just coming to check on you and make sure that you were all right.
Well, let's head back to the doctor.
He
Yes.
says, let me ask you something, Colonel, as you guys are kind of walking back up to the building up here where Morgan is. He says, how did that thing that you drew on the stone, how did you get it to glow like that? Is that like some kind of chemistry trick or something?
Well, the man I learned from it said it was
Curious.
magic. And I like chuckle.
He gives you like the most skeptical look you've ever seen anyone give.
I
Not a
shrug.
believer.
And he just kind of nods.
I shrug and I like give him a, well, that's the facts sort of look. Like I
But
can't
it-
do anything about it.
But in an English accent.
Right.
Well, that's the facts, mate.
Right, them's the facts there.
All right. You really should use your English accent. The Colonel's from England, right? Just saying.
Right,
All right.
well, I suppose I should, but then I'll be talking like this the whole time, and it's all probably very wrong. And the few viewers that we get on the YouTubes will probably say, "Hi, that's very wrong."
Okay.
Well, they can get over here and play themselves. Just deal with it. This is not Hollywood, fuckers.
Yeah, and besides, these videos are mostly for posterity at this point, just for us.
Sure.
You know, maybe in the future, we'll put them out there.
Yeah, we'll make it big. Our names will be in
Yeah.
in lights on the theaters as we do live Call of Cthulhu shows. Anyways, back to Baby Skin Professor Face insult here.
All right, well, let's head back to.
I don't trust that baby skin motherfucker. All right.
I don't trust him.
So you
something
enter
right.
this next building, and you find Morgan and Dr. Franklin are in there. And all along the interior walls of this building, you see what appear to be a series of low altars, each built beneath the sculpture of a different tree monster.
Different? In what way are they
They're
different?
just all kind of in different poses, you know. Some of them are bigger than others. And just inside the entrance, as you guys walk in, you see sitting on the floor, Franklin and Morgan are kind of across the room from you as you enter. But sitting on the floor, just inside the entrance, you see a crate, a wooden crate with a lantern sitting on the floor next to it. And the top of the crate's been removed. And inside the crate, you can see there's a bunch of fungus kind of growing inside the crate and on the crate itself. You can see a bunch of packing straw that's been kind of pulled apart and separated, so you can see what's kind of lying in the bottom of it. And lying in the bottom of a crate appears to be some sort of old Mayan carving sitting in there. It looks like a head or some part of a body or something like that. It's kind of hard to tell.
Any resemblance to the giant evil thing that greeted us?
No.
The giant statue thing, like the face here.
Well, you get a closer look at. You got a flashlight, right? So you
Yeah.
kind of shine it down. You kind of shine it down in there, and it just appears to be like a very normal, actually, kind of Mayan-looking humanoid carving of a humanoid deity, possibly, or a priest or something like that. It's got kind of this headdress on it, this mask. It's got this kind of Mayan-style clothing. Really not that unusual from what you've seen of Mayan carvings.
Professor, is this Williamson's work?
He says, yes, Colonel, I believe it's probably something that Williamson found in these ruins.
I'm really starting to size Morgan up. Like, I know I just got close to him for the first time, but that has me. I'm in full like paying attention to every fucking thing this guy does.
Okay. Yeah, he comes walking over. He's got a flashlight in one hand. He's got this sort of slip of paper in the other. And he walks up and as he walks up to you two, he hands the piece of paper to Percy. It kind of looks at you, Braun. He says, is there something wrong, Mr. Braun? Percy, on the piece of paper.
And I kind of like freeze up when he says that.
Okay.
But I'm gonna look at the paper. But like,
on the piece of paper, it appears to be like a card or a tag with a string on it, something that you would sort of tag like an artifact, an archaeological dig or something like that. And on the paper, it's written in ink. It says artifact 205, comma D period Belize. So it appears that he says, and he's still looking at you, Braun. He says, I found that in the crate. Is there something wrong, Mr. Braun?
No, just just watching the magic at work. Never been to a site like this before. You are impressive, to say the least.
Says, yes, well, yes, I'm getting hungry and tired too.
What?
I too am
Says,
tired, human.
He says, I think you may be suffering from some fatigue. He says, with like a completely blank face.
Ah,
Says,
so those are emotions. I
says,
too will emote. Ha ha.
So he says, perhaps we should camp. Because I think we've done enough for today. It's been a long
Professor,
day.
was there anything else in this hut of interest other than this crate?
He says, no, not with these altars, with these strange tree-like creatures. Monsters, I should say.
Yes.
But this is be so man, so strange.
Eustace is getting the heebie-jeebies a little bit. Like Percy, even you can tell. I mean, you know the guy, right? You can tell Eustace just seems a little unsettled right now. He's usually a pretty cool customer, but he seems just a little off. He says, "All right, gentlemen, let's go back to camp and get some rest." He says.
So I mean, I just when Morgan's got his back to us, I just kind of cast a glance at the colonel, like, what the fuck was that? Something's way off here.
Franklin kind of looks back at you guys as he's walking out with Morgan.
Oh, he does.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not gonna do anything if Franklin's looking back.
Well, they walk out of the building, leave you guys inside the little altar room here.
I just look at Colonel, the colonel, and just like, see what I mean? Something's fucking wrong.
I like pat him on the shoulder as we pass and like whisper, "What's the matter? Never seen someone keeping a secret before?" And go walking with the professor.
By the way, on the way out, Morgan kind of stoops and picks up that crate.
Okay.
With the carving and carries it out with him.
Okay.
So let's discuss. Yeah, Yusuf seems a little like. I mean, at first, Percy, when he came to you out here on the platform, he was like, "Man, there's something weird about going on." You were kind of, skeptical a little bit about it, but now you can see that actually Yusuf, he seems actually kind of physically shaken. I mean, he seems just kind of nervous, and very sincere in what he's saying to you.
Right.
So you don't think that he's suffering from fatigue or, any kind of maybe, lapse in reason, which would be, expected, in the situation you guys have been in. But he seems to have his faculties, but he seems very sincere in what he's saying to you. And it makes you wonder.
Okay.
I mean,
he's been right before.
Yeah. So looking back at the professor, do I notice the similar, like, now that I'm looking for it, do I notice that he's got, like, a total lack of bug bites, scratches, and bruises?
Yeah, well, that night, I mean, you guys, Miguel has set up camp, pretty much. When you guys get back to camp, Devlin is able to kind of calm him down. You guys have some food. And that evening, indeed, you do notice, upon closer inspection, you begin, you have a conversation with Morgan about some of these frescoes and carvings that you saw today, kind of comparing notes. You're both pretty baffled about them, really. But it's actually, Morgan seems actually pretty excited to have found this place. And he says, like, this is groundbreaking,
Right.
He doesn't come out and say it, but he seems to be pretty excited to return to the States and publish what he's found. But indeed, you do, notice getting closer to him, he doesn't have any kind of scrapes or wounds or insect bites or anything on him. It's almost like he's, I mean,
Is Miguel here?
spotless. Yeah, Miguel's here.
Okay.
He's serving the stew, setting up the tents for the night, tending to Ruth, the mule.
That's not.
So,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just like, Yusuf is just tying stuff together in his head. He's like, so Lockley wasn't trustworthy. He was recommended highly to Morgan. Morgan doesn't appear to be natural. And Morgan's always excited to dig deeper into this. It's almost like he's not human.
Right.
Something's
up.
Maybe he moisturizes regularly.
Yeah, maybe. Is my seal holding up?
Certainly.
Excellent. I smile at the professor over Stu as we're kind of sitting in our little circle.
Yeah.
Professor! Tell me, old chap, how is it that you keep all of the scrapes and bruises of the jungle off of you? How could you possibly keep so many mosquitoes off of you? It's impossible. Look at him! And I point at, I point at the MD. Even he's got bug bites.
Franklin kind of raises his eyebrows at you. Morgan says, why? And he kind of looks, at his hand and says, well, what do you mean, Colonel? Miguel's mule rub does wonders.
I look over to Miguel. Is he also baby smooth and without scratches, bruises, and bug bites?
Miguel's totally fucked up.
and he's giving you a standard look.
No, I mean he's got a sprained ankle. His fingers and hands are all cut up and scraped up. He's got bandages on him, and yeah, he's pretty messed up. Although the bugs haven't bothered him as much as they have you guys.
Yes, Professor, but Yusufus uses Miguel's mule rub every hour.
Well, perhaps he should use it every half hour.
And I laugh. Yes, perhaps.
No, it really is good stuff. Or whatever the...
Have we noticed?
Whatever the 1920s parlance would be.
What's
it's the bee's knees, he says.
Well, being that as it may, how would we like to store these rubbings? I just try to change the topic because obviously he's not gonna be like, I'm an alien,
Oh well, you guys got me. I'm bug proof.
Well, he goes on to explain to you that he plans on cataloging everything that you find. Tomorrow, he would like to take some time to document and photograph some of these frescoes and some of these engravings. After we've explored, the rest of the complex, or at least what we can. I expect that we'll be here for at least a few days.
Well,
certainly, I hope to find what happened to Williamson as soon as possible.
Well, I would say this being the 5th skeleton or remains that we found, I hate to say it, Dr. Morgan, but I think the survival of Williamson is slim at best.
He looks you in the eye and he says, you don't know Williamson. He kind of takes a bite of stew.
Do tell.
He's a strong, adventurous soul, Mr. Braun. Unlike any other man I've seen in my profession. He has seen and done things that no other man has. And if anyone could survive this expedition, he would be the one. I still have faith, Mr. Braun.
Well,
Are you losing faith?
I'm just watching the body count rise, sir.
Yes, well, we've done pretty good so far, haven't we?
So far.
And with that, I kind of look out into the mist, thinking about Lockley.
Right.
Well, I was gonna say, since we've had such a good luck run, let's keep that going, fellas. We need to have watches tonight.
Yes. And Devlin says, yeah. He says, I'll take first watch. He says, Braun, later on, Devlin comes to you, Eusebius. He's like, I'm a little worried about Lockley myself. He says, although he did seem pretty scared, and I'm half tempted to say that he's probably on his way back to the river, but I wouldn't put it past him to be lurking around here somewhere. He says that when we found Baldwin's body, somebody killed him. I think Dr. Franklin's right. I think he was murdered. And if you ask me, he says, I'm no detective, nothing like that. I'm just a simple man. But given the situation, I think that it was Lockley who killed him. I think that it was Lockley who killed them all, he says.
Could be. That would make him very dangerous indeed.
He says we need to keep our eyes peeled, Eustace. We need to be vigilant. We need to be on the lookout. He says, I ain't dying out here in this place.
No. The body count ends with this last party.
And Devlin says, he kind of changes the subject. He's like, so what is it with you and Morgan?
I was like, Devlin, you won my trust when you came back and helped save the Colonel with me. So I'm gonna be blunt with you. Something's not quite right with Dr. Morgan. Look at his skin. It's flawless. I know he made light of the matter, but I'm not really sure what his motives are. For now.
He kind of wrinkles his nose at you. He's like, his skin? What do you mean? His skin?
Look at him. He's got no bug bites, no scratches, no bruises, no nothing. I can understand the no scratches and bruises.
He kind of turns his head, and kind of looks at Morgan. Morgan's kind of packing up some stuff and getting ready to sleep, getting ready for bed, and kind of looks over at Morgan, and he turns back to you and he says, good breeding?
Not likely. I was like, when you keep your ears, your eyes peeled, keep your ears open, and I think we got to watch everybody here. Not being paranoid, just something's not quite right.
Especially that spooky Percy Fawcett. What's with that guy making glowing symbols and stuff?
Well, he's all right, but I can vouch for the Colonel. But
he says, yeah, maybe you're right, Eustace. Better safe than sorry.
Lockley was on the prior mission, and Morgan. There's something correlated there. It's queer. That's all I'll say. And let's keep our eyes peeled.
What does the Colonel think of all this?
Asks.
Well, he's asking Yusuf this. He's having a kind of a private conversation with you. He asks you, Yusuf. He says, "What does the Colonel think about all this?"
I'll be right back.
I believe the Colonel is kind of in the same spot I am. Just has noticed it. Brought it up at dinner tonight. You heard that. We're just he thinks he's keeping some kind of secret. That's what he told me. I don't think the secret's something better than Miguel's mule rub. Something weird's going on. and in my head, I'm like, did this guy bring all these people out to sacrifice them? And we're the next group of people he's brought out here to sacrifice Williamson and Morgan. So, like Williamson is, this is just all my mental stuff.
Sure.
Williamson is, different sort. Like he may have survived after all this. And
yeah, Devlin kind of reaches out and puts his hand on your shoulder. He says, "Don't worry, Braun. We'll get through this. We're going to stick together. We're going to get through this. Don't worry."
I shake my hand and clap my hand on his back. Much appreciated.
Like, all right, good night.
All right, I'll take. So first, how many watches are we having?
I don't know. 3 is probably sufficient. It's probably standard procedure.
All right. So I'll take second watch, and who's going to take third? I'm voting for Colonel Percy Fawcett.
All right, Percy will take the third watch.
Mm-hmm.
So Percy, Eustace wakes you up early the next morning before the sun has come up. Tells you it's your turn for watch. So Eustace, you get some much needed rest. And after about an hour, you begin hearing these damn whisperings again out in the jungle, Percy. And it's usually, you got all this stuff going through your mind. You're thinking, and you're probably writing, and you start hearing these whisperings, and you stop and you listen. And you don't hear them anymore. And you just kind of get the chills a little bit, and you're just like, whatever. I just need to ignore this stuff. And you kind of go back to, you get back in your head, and you start writing again. You'll hear them again. You'll stop and listen. You won't hear them again. And again, a little bit later, just as you can see the light of the sun coming up, you get that feeling again, like you're being watched. But this time you're not sure, like, you just kind of get this feeling like something's watching you. It doesn't, that's all I'm going to say. Just there's something out there in the jungle. Basically, you come to the conclusion that morning that there is something out there in that jungle that's watching you. Okay. Not necessarily someone, but something. You just have this kind of gut feeling, especially with these whisperings that you hear, because some of them don't sound like human, and you can tell if they're real or if they're in your mind. So you have a pretty rough night, when you're on your watch. You're a little jittery that morning. The whisperings especially have just kind of driven you a little freaking crazy. Let's just say, like you just can't get them out of your head no matter what.
Right.
And it usually starts happening when you kind of, you kind of get to a point where like, okay, it's not happening, everything's cool. You kind of just wait and you listen for like 5 whole minutes, right? Mm-hmm. You don't hear anything. So you go back to what you're doing, and then almost immediately you kind of start just very faintly, and they kind of build up. So you guys all get up in the morning. Morgan tells you guys that his plan for today is to basically just let Devlin stay back with Miguel at camp. Miguel refuses to go into Bendal Dolum. And Morgan, kind of shares with everybody. He says, I understand. His people are very superstitious. And he's a little, kind of does this.
Right.
So I think it'll be okay if we just let Devlin stay back with him today. And I propose that we kind of explore the southern side of Bendal Dolum a little bit more today.
I go to Miguel before we head off, and I crouch down, and I pat him on the shoulder, and I point to the glowing star, and I say in Spanish, Miguel, that's to protect you. There is safety around that star. When you are near it, you will be safe. Just kind of like as a reassurance.
Okay. So you're speaking Spanish to him? Is
Yeah.
that what you're doing?
Yeah.
Well, he doesn't really understand Spanish that well. He speaks a sort of a Yucatan dialect. It's similar to Spanish, but not quite. So it actually takes you a little while, and you're having a little trouble making him understand. But Devlin helps you.
You want
Actually,
me
he
to
comes.
give a Spanish roll?
No, because it's not really Spanish. I mean, he's kind of understanding maybe a quarter of what you're saying.
Okay.
But Devlin kind of notices that you're having a little trouble making him understand, so he kind of comes over and he speaks a little bit of the language, and he helps you make Miguel understand what you're saying to him. And Miguel, turns to him and kind of, nods his head.
Right.
Here's
It-
some cigarettes to protect you.
uh, and he kind of claps you on the shoulder like this, and he hands you, a bottle of Miguel's Mule Rub.
Perfect. Apparently, I need to put more of this on. Ah ha ha ha.
Yeah. Devlin says, make sure you put that on. He says.
Okay.
All right. All right. So we're going to move down this way today. This building appears to be just basically like a junction. Let me make sure here. This module's kind of old school.
I just
So,
realized that it's actually pronounced Bendal Dolum.
no, it's Dolum.
With the umlauts.
Dolum.
But it's got umlauts.
Where?
Yo.
What are you looking at?
The
On the
title.
map that you have up for us.
Oh.
It says Bendal Dolum. Or it could
Oh,
be Dolum,
okay.
but
Well, I'm the game master, and I say it's Dolum.
fine.
Right. This is just another interpretation of it right here.
Okay,
Right.
fine. Ignore him.
So there
I
you
don't
go.
care.
It's kind of like the pronunciation of Cthulhu. Like there's a bunch of different ones.
Cthulhu.
So,
Right. Exactly.
you guys enter. It's a very small chamber. It appears to be a junction. There's another ramp that leads to another building nearby. But as soon as you all enter this room, it's about 20 foot square. There's about a 30-foot ceiling. And as soon as you enter the room, you all begin hearing these garbled voices speaking. Almost as if these voices are kind of speaking from the stone walls in this room. And you all kind of stop as you enter the room. And Morgan's like, "Can you hear that?" And everybody's like, "Yeah, yeah." And here's what you hear. It's very faint, but it's audible. And Percy, you recognize it as the same whispering that you heard when you put your ear to the stone face.
So we are all hearing it now.
Yes.
So we're all having to make a sanity roll?
Well, hold on. I'm going to play it for you just for a second here.
Okay, hold on. Let me turn my volume up so I can hear it.
Yeah, turn it up. I'll turn it up here too. It first starts with sort of this garbled kind of speech, and it kind of almost like these sucking sounds in it, just like you hear. And then it becomes much more pronounced, and here's what you hear. This goes on for a minute. I'll be right back.
Dad, we can't hear you.
There are some phrases in there that you recognize as English, of course.
Yeah, one of them sounds like please come is what it sounds like.
There's one that said, "Dear God," one that said, "Please come," one that said something about curses. I have more faith in you than that, and there's something that you do not know yet.
Sounds about right.
This comes
And then
from
I just
years of watching Ghost Hunters with my mother, who listens to the EVPs
right.
on repeat to get them down.
Yeah.
Well, that's good experience to have right now. What does that say? There's an orb in my bedroom.
Yeah. And then it just kind of diminishes to the garbled.
Professor, Professor, I think I have some idea of what that is.
What is it?
Do you believe in ghosts?
Why, yes, I do.
Really? He is just full of surprises, this Dr. Morgan.
He says, I've spent many long hours speaking to many of the professors at Miskatonic. And of course, as you well know, it is a subject of very serious study at the university.
Yes.
I am certain that there is life after death.
Do you believe in life after love? I nod solemnly.
He says, do you think they could be the ghosts of the natives speaking to us?
The natives,
They're speaking
and
English.
perhaps even more. Perhaps the others that died here. Who knows? This place is unholy. This place is unsafe.
I wouldn't go so far, Colonel.
But we saw the skeleton of... Well, they speak English at any rate. It's
Well,
just a theory.
why should the dead be limited to the languages of life?
And I get a
their lives.
thoughtful look on my face, and I nod, like, I concede. Yes.
He says, when we get back to the States, you should consult Armitage on the subject. He likes to speak of such things.
It's a shame that we can't record this. These whispers and these odd chants in the mist.
Indeed. Gentlemen, let's move on. Dr. Franklin looks even worse today than he did yesterday.
Really?
Yeah, he didn't look like he got much sleep last night. He kind of trips and stumbles a couple of times. He doesn't look like he's doing very well.
Dr. Franklin, my boy, if you think that you're going to trip and...
As you say that, he's startled when you speak to him. And he looks at you.
If you fall into the water, I have no idea how we're going to get you out again. And I chuckle.
He doesn't say anything to you. He just kind of clears his throat a little bit. And stumbles into the next room up here. Let me ask you guys something, because I don't think I made a note of it. Let me turn this off real quick. Do you guys remember back when we were at the Mayan-style pyramid?
Yeah.
There was a night that you guys spent there when some of you had dreams. Now, I know that Braun had the dream. Devlin had the dream. Lockley had the dream.
Eusephus had the dream.
Right. Well, yeah, Braun. Okay.
I don't.
Does that sound right?
I don't remember if I did. I don't think you
No.
explicitly said.
I don't think you did.
No, you didn't. No, it was Braun, Lockley, and Devlin. Okay. You guys walk into this building. And this building contains several stone altars very similar to the ones you saw in the other altar building yesterday. With the sort of tree monsters looming over these stone altars cut into the wall. And between the altars are carvings of what appears to be a ruined city populated by nightmare beasts. And when I say nightmare beasts, I mean these things that Eusephus, for example, saw in your dreams that night.
Oh, this is not going to be good.
It's sort of a nightmare landscape of ruins. Mayan type pyramids. And there's like these kind of sort of viscous mists even engraved into these into the walls. And you see these obscenely malformed creatures that seem to be kind of writhing slowly across the stones. And their bodies just kind of twist into these grotesquely insane shapes. And some of them are half enshrouded in these mists. And it strikes you immediately, Eusephus. It's exactly what you saw in your dream. It's almost an overhead view of the city with these sort of nightmare creatures kind of crawling and moving about the city. I need you to make a sanity check for Eusephus.
I did not make it.
So, to clarify, this is something that you're physically seeing, or just on the walls, or?
These are engravings on the walls of the exact visions that Eusephus, Devlin, and Lockley had in their dreams. You lose 3 sanity points, Eusephus.
Arg.
Just because it's so easily recognizable by you as the exact thing you saw in your dream. And you're kind of entranced for a moment, almost a full minute, actually. Percy, you notice Braun like looking with his wide eyes, at these engravings on the wall, and he just stands still. He's got his his Thompson kind of in his left hand, kind of hung down. And he's just standing still, just staring at the wall as Morgan and Franklin and Devlin kind of move in a little further into the room. Eusephus is just standing there. And you snap out of it after a moment, after about a minute.
I'll say this wall matches my dreams. The weird dream.
Yeah. Whispers Eusephus. You overhear him whispering to himself, apparently. He says something like, "in my dreams," or something like that, nearby Percy.
Would I quirk an eyebrow at him?
I'll say it aloud. This is exactly what I saw in my dreams, loud enough for everybody to hear me.
I nod thoughtfully.
Morgan seems to take no notice as he moves further into the room. Devlin turns to you. He says, Braun.
Yeah.
Don't look at them. Stop. Come here. And he kind of pulls you away. Don't. And he says again, kind of in a low voice, he says, "Don't look at them."
All right, I try to discipline my eyes away from them.
Inside this room, you find more half-completed moldy rubbings of all types of carvings, and they're strewn all about the room. Let me see here. Percy, you notice one in particular at your feet as you're kind of shining your light around. Morgan's kind of picking some of them up, and kind of looking at them. But you, Percy, you see one at your feet. That looks interesting. It's fairly intact. The rubbing shows what appears to be a priest, like a Mayan priest, holding a shiny object in his hands. And he's standing before what appears to be this wall, and you recognize it as a very similar kind of face that you saw on the wall near the platform outside.
Okay. This is on a what?
It's a rubbing. Somebody took a charcoal rubbing of it. Okay? And it shows what appears to be a priest, like a Mayan priest with this headdress, holding a shiny object up like this,
Okay.
in front of this wall that has this face on it. Also scattered throughout the room, Eusephus, you notice this as well. It appears to be just loose sheets of paper that appear to be notes of some kind, like handwritten notes. And you see Morgan standing over there, and he's looking at some of this stuff, and he says, Morgan, these are Morgan's notes.
Or
he says he was here.
These are Williamson's notes?
Yes.
All right, well.
He says, collect them.
Okay. I was going to ask anyway, so yeah. I'll collect them, but while I'm collecting them, I'm looking at the notes themselves.
Okay.
I'm giving them a thorough inspection, but really I'm skimming to see if there's anything worth reading, like, don't trust Dr. Morgan or something like that.
Right. Okay. I called to the professor. So this carving, or this rubbing of the priest, is the thing that he's holding up, does it appear to be an amulet? Just straight up, does it
his hand is kind of held up like this, almost like in a fist.
Yeah.
Kind of like this. And you can see, like, in the top part of his hand, there's just kind of the stylized, like, shining, like, rays of sun kind of shooting up out of the top of his hand, almost as if he's like holding a shiny object.
Okay, so it's his fist itself, basically, that's glowing, not like.
Well, it looks like he's holding something like this. No, it's not his fist that's glowing. It looks like he's holding something, but the rubbing is not really distinct enough to see what the object is.
Can I find that particular carving in this room?
Percy begins searching around the room.
Yes.
It's going to take you a little while.
Okay.
In the meantime, Morgan and Eusephus and the others collect these notes. Many of them are ruined and illegible. What you learn from the notes that are intact, the notes that you find that are readable concern him talking about his failure to gain entrance to the pyramid complex. He says in the notes that he believes the pyramid complex contains the fabled caves of life, he writes. He also mentions, you see mentioned in his notes, that he has found some of the rubies that supposedly originate from these caves.
The rubies we found on Lockley.
Seems likely, doesn't it?
Yeah, worried about this since last week.
Well, I guess now you know.
Exactly.
Other than that, yeah.
I was just the rubies.
The rubies.
I have, notes reading Tourette's. Dreams, rubies.
Yeah. Well, Morgan, I mean, he realizes this too. He says, yeah, it was Lockley. Damn him, he says. Damn him! And he actually gets kind of pissed off, and he like throws his fucking machete and hits the wall. You know.
That's the most human thing you've done in week. No, just kidding.
Right.
My
In
God,
head,
he can emote.
in my
Yeah.
head, I'm like, he's actually showing emotion now. That's good.
Yeah, and he does this kind of thing like kind of calms down.
I'll go get his machete and hand it back to him.
Yeah, did
Thank
he
you, Mr.
stab me
Cross.
in the head on accident, or?
Right.
Yeah, hand it back to him by placing it
Ah,
gently
it wasn't
inside his
emotion, it
skull.
was just his first murder all along.
So Percy, you're unable to find anything that resembles the rubbing that you found. I mean, like I said, really, it's just a series of stone altars, and between these altars are these carvings of a ruined city. It seems to be populated by these sort of malformed, grotesque-looking,
Okay.
bipedal creatures.
Well, I don't
Roughly
like looking at them.
bipedal. No, they're not very pleasant to look at.
So I look at the rubbing again. So it looks like whatever the dude is holding, it's probably sticking up out of his hand.
Yeah, you can tell there's definitely something in his hand.
Okay, but it's not like something would be like hanging down in a circle.
No, it appears to be something small,
Okay.
but it's shining. It's as if there are these rays
Well,
kind of shooting up
I
out
guess
of it.
again, could it be that amulet? Is there any like? Does it
Well,
seem possible
Of course.
by the art?
Of course it does.
Okay.
It occurs to you almost immediately, I would say.
Okay.
It did, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, that's exactly.
Yeah.
So I go back to the professor, and I show him the rubbing. Professor,
Okay.
I think that perhaps that amulet might be the key into the dark. To the statue, that is. The thing, the structure. With the face.
And that gets his attention as you show him the rubbing. He says, that's very interesting.
I couldn't find that particular carving anywhere in this room. But it's just a hunch.
Well, it seems that many of these buildings contain carvings, and I suspect we probably only explored half of them. I'm quite certain that these are Williamson's rubbings.
Now, you say that you found his notes.
Well, remnants of his notes.
Why would he be leaving them here?
That I do not know, Colonel.
Do you think that
But
he was...
But I intend to find out.
Do you think that he was fleeing this place in a hurry, and perhaps they fell from what he was holding?
He says, I fear that perhaps Lockley had something to do with it. Isn't it obvious?
Yes.
Well, I guess you know what Yusuf says. In just a question, Doctor and Colonel, the artifact that was found in the crate yesterday. What was that exactly? Seems like an awful lot of trouble to bring that way out here. Is that something that?
He says, now that you mentioned it, it seemed similar to the rubbing itself. It appears to be a stone carving. It's a representation of a Mayan priest of some kind.
We'll compare it later.
Yes. All right. So, you got a few more minutes, Kyle?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'm not getting up at 5 a.m. to catch a plane tomorrow.
Okay, good.
Last week was a little different.
Yeah, that's okay. So that was the nightmare room. Moving on.
Yeah, which way are we going now?
We're going to lead you down here to the south. This appears to be and another junction. As soon as you walk in, you begin hearing those damnable whispers. And Morgan's like, come, let's move.
I heard something about rubbings.
Huh?
Like in the voices, I thought I heard something about rubbing.
It's a pretty weird whispering sound. Here, I'll turn it up even more for you. It's pretty weird.
There is slurping.
You get the impression that some of it is actually like backwards. Almost if someone is speaking backwards. Weird stuff. But Morgan leads you out of there pretty quickly. All right, you'll like this one, Kyle.
Uh-oh. It's the Lockley room.
Oh God.
All right. Yeah.
Williamson and Lockley are playing Yahtzee in the corner.
Let's go home, guys, with my brand new jet.
All right. As you enter this room, this building, it's a pretty large building. It's the largest one you guys have encountered yet, except for the history room, where it kind of showed the history of Bendal, Dolum.
Yeah.
This one's almost as large. And every wall of this chamber bears bas relief of very clearly depicted tentacled tree-like monsters drooling from multiple mouths. And in the center of the room is a narrow, about 2 foot in diameter, well, surrounded by a low wall and covered by a stone lid.
Uh-oh.
We're not opening the lid.
And Franklin, as you guys get in there, you guys are shining your lights, and your light kind of falls on this well in the center of the room. Franklin faints.
Oh shit. All right.
He just kind of falls to the ground. And Morgan's like, Doctor.
I'll go over and splash some water in his face. Like, Doctor, come on.
I freeze up and just stare at the well.
Yeah, it's smaller than the first well. About half as big, actually, is the one that you found in Lost Calcamol. And the architecture is quite different.
Maybe this is the healing well. This is where they bring you. Let's rip the top off, and maybe we'll just get healed up.
Yeah.
Points back.
But as I said, it's very narrow. It's only about 2 feet in diameter. And it's surrounded by a low wall. About a 2 foot high wall surrounding this circular well, and it's covered by a stone lid. And that's all that's in the room. Except for every wall has these tentacled tree-like monsters engraved into the stone.
Starting to detect a theme here.
Yeah,
it's the
a little
lotion
bit.
on its skin, or else it gets the hose again.
Or we open up the well again. Ah.
So Franklin kind of snaps out of it, and he's kind of groggy. He's just like, "What happened?"
You fainted.
I'm so sorry. He gets up and kind of brushes himself off. He turns to Morgan. He's like, I'm sorry, doctor. I didn't get much sleep last night," he says. He says, yes. Understandable, doctor. Understandable.
I tell Dr. Franklin, on the way back, I want you holding on to me the whole time.
He nods. And he gets out his canteen, takes a nice swig of water. Morgan's like, "Are you okay, doctor? Are you okay to continue?" He's like, "Yes. Yes, Jeremy, I'm fine." So Morgan turns to you guys. He's like, "Well, judging by our last experience with the well, I think it might be wise to leave. I don't think that I'm." He says, "I don't think I'm willing to open this particular well."
Agreed.
Agreed.
Yes.
Let's move on.
And we will.
Back through the nightmare room.
Quickly through the nightmare room.
All right. Okay. All right. This room is quite lovely. This one-room structure contains more frescoes in color of unspeakably brutal mutilations carried out on hapless humans by the same tree-like horrors depicted in the other rooms. And nearly identical to the thing you found in a room yesterday, you see another well in the center of the room, and rising from the well is another tree-like statue. And it kind of forms the, ceiling with its branches. However, in this one, the depictions of this torture and slaughter of these humans is almost unbelievably much worse than the first room of frescoes that you found yesterday. I'm talking about almost like pornographic detail.
Right.
And I'll just leave that to your imagination. There are just unspeakably horrible things being done to these humans by these monsters. And I'm going to require a sanity check again for that. I mean, you have to imagine, the frescoes in these walls, took quite some time to carve. And you can only imagine what type of person or thing could even portray these sorts of things.
I failed.
All right, lose 1 sanity point.
I succeeded. Hooray!
Give me 1 second here. And Morgan points out, as he's kind of studying his room, he points out that he says, Colonel, these rooms seem to be quite different from, the other buildings that we found in the structure so far. There doesn't seem to be any sort of normal ritual function for this building. He says, I have a tendency to believe that whoever the inhabitants of this place were, he says either this was a place possibly where they kept prisoners, or perhaps it just could be a display of the diseased mind of the artisan who made them.
Who says this?
Morgan.
See, there's moments where he sounds really human.
Yeah. I mean, he has had his moments. I mean, he does seem to be genuinely interested in everything that you guys are finding from a scientific aspect.
I don't think there's anything wrong with Morgan. If anything, there's something that he's holding back, but I bet you it's like the kind of arcane stuff that Professor Farnsworth was into, I didn't, you wouldn't want to show off the fact that you have the magic to stop bugs from getting to you, because if anybody told you, if you told someone that, they think you're freaking nuts. So
Maybe.
I don't think it's a sinister thing that's going on. I think it's more like a secret something or other that he has on him, or that he's done to himself, that
Well, all I can say is I think we're gonna have more than one product out of this than the Miguel's Mule Rub,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
if
Morgan,
that's the case.
Morgan leads you guys out of here to the next room. And as you guys are out on the platform, you can see this dark, black stone structure to your right. Continues even further off back in the mist to the west. It's gigantic, whatever it is. You can't see the top of it or anything, but it just kind of comes straight up out of the water, this black stone. Off in this direction, you guys are about right
Which
here.
direction?
Hold on, I'll show you. You guys are about right here outside on the platform.
Yep.
Off in this direction, you can see just at the edge of your vision, out in the mist, what appears to be another very large structure poking up out of the jungle above. And all you can see is just kind of a shadowy darkness kind of going up into the mist. It's not, you really can't see the shape of it or anything, but there's something back there in the jungle poking up out of the canopy.
Yeah.
Does
You all
everybody
see it.
sees it? Everybody sees it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He says, and Morgan's like, perhaps, later today we can traverse the lake shore and see what that is. Look at it. It's gigantic. What could it be?
Another temple.
Yeah.
Well, the carvings in one of the rooms back there, it showed a much larger city than just this. Maybe there's something beyond the shore. Maybe that's the rest of it.
There is definitely something beyond the shore. There's definitely something out there that rises up above the canopy. It's just kind of indistinct in its shape. And you're just kind of catching glimpses of it through the mist, but you can see it kind of like a shadow. Even though it's daytime, it's very kind of dim, and foggy. But you can see that there's something out there. This next building is filled with all sorts of different kinds of statues. There's statues of humans who appear to be, unlike Mayans, they actually appear to be more, unlike any race you've ever seen, actually. They're very unusual in their bone structure and the way that they're depicted. Among these human statues, you see statues of deer, jaguars, and many other different kinds of animals. And noticeably, as you guys are there for a few minutes, you guys find a dog-like statue, some kind of dog-like animal or something. It appears that its head has been sawn off.
Like, sawn off with a saw?
With the saw. Yes. Morgan points out to Colonel Fawcett. He says, Colonel, as you probably know, he says, none of these statues are of the Mayan style.
Yes.
He says, this is even more unusual than anything we've seen yet. And he starts pointing out some of the particulars,
Yes.
as far as the methods they used to create them. He says the Mayans didn't have, they did not have these sort of artistic principles, he says.
Do you think perhaps, and this is again just a theory, just given how odd all of these things are, perhaps this is the body to the head of the statue that we found?
No. I think it's distinctly different. He says it does appear to have been sawn off with a modern tool, and rather recently. And again, he kind of points out the particulars to you, like, this is why, He says, note these striations or whatever.
Right. I'd like to compare the angle at which it was cut off with the angle at which the head was removed.
Yeah. Percy starts doing like equations and shit, and they're all comparing. So yeah, I mean this and they're just kind of scattered inside of this dark chamber. And as I said, the humans appear to be very unusual. They tend to be a little taller than your average human, about 6.5 feet. They seem to be hairless, bald, and naked. Just
The
very
anatomy's correct on them, or
anatomy's correct. But they don't seem to have any kind of distinct like racial features that you would normally see. You can't tell if they're Caucasian or Negro or Asian, or they don't appear to be any of those. They appear to be kind of something very different.
Okay.
They're actually quite beautiful appearing,
Sure. Just kind of. I mean, can we tell if they're female and male, or are they just like androgynous humanoids?
They are. Apparently nobody noticed that until you just did, Percy.
Okay.
they're like a
Sexless.
race of seahorse people.
Yes.
So are they wearing clothing?
No.
No, they're naked.
Yep.
Okay, so then they're just missing sexual organs.
Mm-hmm.
Weird.
And their bone structure is very kind of strange.
I point that out to the professor.
Yeah. She says, I did not notice that. That's odd. Definitely not Mayan, he says. Definitely not.
Barely human, I mutter.
And he's making notes in his journal. I'm going to wrap this session up here in a second. As you guys exit the statue building,
Okay.
and kind of look out to the west towards where you saw this thing poking up through the canopy, see the mist is cleared enough for you guys to get a pretty good view of it.
Right.
It's actually not a building. It appears to be a statue, and you'd guess that a conservative estimate, it rises almost 120 feet above the canopy of the jungle.
Wow, so it's like the Colossus.
Massive. Yes. And it seems to depict, it's on a, excuse me, it's on a pedestal that rises up above the forest, above the jungle. And sitting on top of the pedestal is a massive statue of a bipedal creature. It has huge claws on its feet. And the creature's waist explodes into thousands of tentacles with two writhing serpents rising from the armless torso in lieu of a head.
The serpents are back. We saw them once before.
Okay, so to be clear, this is the statue that's like a mile out in the mist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we see the...
It's absolutely enormous.
So, like, is it down, like, in a valley? Is, like, the mist clearing and we can kind of catch
Well, the mist
shape?
seems to have kind of temporarily cleared enough for you guys to see high up enough to actually see the statue, this gigantic statue that sits on top of this pedestal. And just above the trees, it's like over 100 feet, maybe 120 feet up above the trees. It's enormous. And it's some kind of crazy looking snake-headed creature, and the claws. You guys have binoculars, right? Did they have binoculars in the 1920s?
Yeah,
They
definitely.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
they might have had binoculars, yeah. I mean, they
Getting-
certainly would have had, like,
Well, yeah, there's
scopes.
Getting a closer look at the binoculars, you can see that the claws on its feet, it has actually several legs. There's about a dozen legs kind of, perching this snake thing that's above it on top of this pedestal. And some of the legs end in these clawed feet, kind of similar to like a lizard or something like that. But you can see that some of the legs end in cloven hooves, just like these tree monsters. The depictions you've seen. So I'm gonna call for a couple rolls here. You guys have Cthulhu Mythos like 2%, right?
Yes.
Roll.
So.
Oh boy.
Oh. All right. Eusephus. Well, actually, either an occult or archaeology roll.
Oh, for me?
Yeah. Yep.
Not
For both of you.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I'll let you roll occult or
No!
archaeology.
I have not made a single roll tonight.
Was that for occult or archaeology?
It was for archaeology.
This was for a cult.
Missed.
Yeah, I missed it. And then archaeology.
Yeah, Alex, you can also roll for occult.
That's archaeology. Yeah.
Morgan
Okay.
rolled.
Ooh.
I made my
Morgan
occult
rolled
roll.
terribly. Percy, you recognize this seems to be sort of a rough representation of the Aztec fertility goddess, Coatliche,
Wait.
but it's distinctly different. It's an Aztec fertility goddess, okay, that you're familiar with, that you've seen,
With
carvings.
12 legs, cloven hooves, a tentacle
Well,
body, and snake head?
That's kind of what makes it different, but it seems to be similar to depictions you've seen, but it's less stylized. Like the Aztecs had a certain sort of certain style.
Okay, so you're saying like it's in a pose or like a semblance of this fertility goddess,
Well,
but it's this cloven hooved
Yeah,
demon?
yeah. The goddess was like a serpent goddess, so it was frequently depicted as a serpent with, multiple serpent-like heads and stuff like that. And that just kind of leads you to believe, that maybe this is some sort of representation of that goddess. But in your gut, you feel it's probably not. But you can check your occult skill.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I tell this to the professor. I mention whatever. I'm still not sure if I can visually understand what you're talking about as far as the similarities go, but I mention them to the professor.
Yeah.
Let's see. There's a picture of, I don't know if you guys can see that. That's the Aztec fertility god.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a relief of one, anyways.
Well, the name that I have is Coatlique.
Yep, that's the one that came up.
Yeah. So as you can see, it's almost similar, but that's just what pops into your head. I mean, just as maybe a outside possibility that this statue could represent something Aztec. It doesn't seem right, But as far as your occult knowledge, perhaps you read an occult book or something at some point that showed maybe a different sort of representation of this fertility goddess that was resembled what you're looking at now. But in your gut, you're pretty sure that it probably doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't represent any kind of Aztec or Mayan god known to man. It's a pretty horrific thing. Well, mostly because it's just it's so gigantic, and it's just kind of looming out there in the mist above you. And it's carved out of this black stone, and it's just so alien, so alien looking to you guys.
Okay, I can kind of see why. I think I can kind of understand what you're talking about now.
Traitor.
I mean, that's the closest thing that you can make a comparison to in reality. Let's just put it that way.
Well, what you described is pretty close to what this statue I'm looking at looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the description, I'll give it to you again. It's a bipedal creature with huge claws on its feet, and the creature's waist explodes into literally thousands of tentacles. And it has two writhing serpents rising from the armless torso in lieu of a head.
It's the tentacles bursting out of its stomach.
Yeah, basically.
I mean,
And,
that's pretty
you know,
close to that thing.
And that's just kind of a general description of it from this distance with binoculars. I mean, if you were to get a closer look at it, you could probably,
So the difference is then that it has more legs with like cloven hooves behind it.
Yes.
Now, are we talking like a spider? Like it's all from the body, or from like a horse where it's like elongated? I'm just trying to get a visual.
You want a visual?
Kinda.
Do you guys want a visual?
I mean,
Sure.
if you have
Normally, I
one.
don't do visuals in Call of Cthulhu, but this might call for a visual.
It kind of does. I'm not sure what I'm looking at or thinking about. Like, at first I was thinking like another tree trunkian creature, but with legs. Like
Okay.
cloven, like leg, but that's not right.
I think I might have something. Just bear with me for a moment.
Like at first I was thinking like the usual artist's rendition of like how Nyarlathotep looks in my like mind's eye, where it's like a bunch of legs with the hooves, and then it kind of
Right.
snakes upwards and has like the hooded face or whatever, you know, like it's something like that.
Yeah.
But okay,
Okay, I think what I should show you, I'm going to show you a representation of it that may be slightly different from the description you're getting from so far away out in the mist and stuff,
okay, sure.
but this will give you a general idea. In fact, some of the appendages that kind of stick out of the top of it appear to be more horn-like than snake-like, almost like ram's horns.
Okay.
Let me see if I can. Let me bring it to a different page here.
I mean, if it's too difficult to get,
No, it's not. It's just technology. All right, this is cool.
Oh wow.
okay then. Well, that's all
That's-
right. Gotcha.
That's her.
Okay.
All right.
Scary.
Yeah, that's pretty freaky, man.
I'm gonna
Notice-
go.
Notice
is-
like the ram horn kind of things coming off of it,
That is no bueno.
like as seen on a ram or a goat. All right.
Wow.
All right.
I don't like this place.
Yeah. All right. Let's go back to something a little more soothing.
Oh yeah, Cthulhu Rising. That's definitely worth
Yeah,
using.
Yeah. That's like just never gonna happen, right? Maybe in our next campaign.
Do I imagine that I'm Dark Child's voice in that garble of blibbering mutterings that we hear all the time?
You know, you haven't heard from the Dark Child for a while.
Maybe it's
Of
the
course.
fertility goddess. She was also
Yeah.
a fertility goddess, I think, if I remember correctly.
Of course, the next was a Heliacal Rising of Aldebaran is not until next year, so.
Well, by then, judging, assuming we make it to that stage, we'll really get to use the Elder symbols to their full extent, because, you know, the
Yeah.
Colonel's getting awesome at making those.
That seemed to at least make her, whatever that thing she sent after you, go away.
Or at least not be there in full, or whatever.
Or whatever, yeah. That was really cool. That was really cool, that scene in the cabin, because you guys didn't even see what it was out there, really.
Yeah,
That
we
was
were
kind
just shooting a tentacle in the woods.
well, like through the door of the cabin,
Yeah.
It's like pounding on the outside of the cabin. That was really cool.
It was. I'm scared, dude. I think the professor's gonna want to leave here and go and investigate the statue. I think we should just get out.
I think the professor brought us here to sacrifice us.
Maybe.
Gibbering Hoof Lord.
Gibbering Hoof Lord.
I do. They almost completed the ceremony last time. They needed more sacrificials. Or he could just, like you were saying, he just could have some knowledge that's keeping him. Yeah, I mean, it would almost be like a player character, right?
Sure.
Where, where you have special powers, but
right. Well, he's close friends with all of the magicians in Arkham, so magicians being scientists.
Okay, I was like, he was close friends with magicians? I don't remember hearing that, but
I mean, you could call Farnsworth a magician at this point. He knows magic now.
Yeah, I mean, that would be player's knowledge, of course. I mean, it's not like, Armitage and, all these guys at Miskatonic, share this kind of information with just anybody. I mean, you guys don't know. Actually at this point in time, just kind of out of game, Armitage probably doesn't even realize what the Necronomicon is, even though he possesses one.
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, it's sort of a secret society, the whole Miskatonic scholarly community. There are certain things that some people should not know.
Right.
Put it that way. Of course, the whole Dunwich horror affair is not supposed to happen for another few years, but
yeah, that's when the Hoof Lord moves into your backyard. I think we're gonna have a few more Amish barn raisins or whatever.
Yeah. I've kind of actually semi-coalesced a plan maybe to even play through a scenario like that where, you guys are involved in the whole Dunwich affair in some way or another.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
I lost the last couple of seconds. I don't know. I took the
No,
power.
I was just saying I've kind of thought a little bit about maybe in the future doing a scenario where you guys as investigators are actually involved in the whole Dunwich affair, that happens in Arkham.
Oh.
With Watley and all that good stuff.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I think this would probably be a good time to stop recording.
Yeah.
And I guess.
Yeah, Lee, are you still with us?
Yeah.
I don't know if Lee's had his voice or anything on this whole time, so.
I think he could hear us. He
probably
just sent
been
us a
able to
note.
hear us, yeah.
It's like great being able to watch the game. The Fetid Swamp calls. Really looking forward to playing. We will get together, Sean, roll up the character, and work out any tech issues. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, he listens to the whole
Awesome.
session. He knows what's going on.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, we'll be able to get him in, before the point of no return.
Awesome.
We'll leave off on that.
Yep.